I'm the program director for the Masters of Athletic Training program. We have Isabel Robles speaking. She's going to be talking about concussion. She's going to be looking at a couple different aspects of concussion tests. So specifically, she's looking at SWAY versus SCAT-5. So I'll turn it over to Isabel and let her go. Thank you very much.
Like he said, my name is Isabel Robles, and I did my topic on concussion sideline reliability between SCAT-5 and SWAY. I kind of chose this topic because over the last semester, my clinical rotation used a lot of SWAY, and that was the first time that I had ever seen it. So I wanted to find out a little bit more if it's better to SCAT-5 or SWAY. So to start us off, a couple things that we need to know is what exactly is a concussion. A concussion is defined as a temporary disturbance in the brain function. So as you see in the GIF, the person kind of hits their head and the brain shakes, and it can be known as a TBI. It's important to know that a concussion can only be diagnosed by a physician. Like, no matter if we're doing this on the sideline, the final diagnosis comes from the physician. There are about 3.8 million sport-related concussions, and this is just with any healthcare provider but sports. So this isn't your everyday people being included in this. So to understand where we're coming from, a couple red flags that we need to look at is slurred speech, severe neck pain, if they lose consciousness. All these are just a couple things that if it happens, you need to call 911 and get out of there. Especially like if you're looking at the pupils and you're shining a light. If one pupil doesn't react like the other people, that's also really important to be like, okay, there's something wrong here, and you need to send them off. And now everyday symptoms that could happen when there's a concussion, the first two that are always 9 times out of 10 going to happen is a headache or dizziness. There are other symptoms like there are other symptoms like fogginess, being sluggish. There's emotional symptoms like anxiety or anger. Some people, when they hit their head, a couple days later, they'll have like a huge anger outburst. And those are just signs that we possibly would have a concussion. In SCAT and SWAY, there are 2 different testing portions. There's one known as a cognitive testing, which includes memory, how well your brain processes thoughts. This could be something that can be used to diagnose, but not always, and it can help monitor. And then there's a neurological portion of the exam. So on the last slide, did anybody notice what color was that square? It was a green square, and that is just an example of a cognitive test. Now, as we move on to neurological testing, neurological focuses more on the health function and nervous aspect of the brain. So this can include proprioception, which is both included in SWAY and SCAT-5. In SWAY and SCAT-5, they use tests like BEST test or Robles test. As you see in the picture, the person is standing there with hands on their hips, eyes closed, and they're balancing. Now, for the SCAT-5, it's a modified BEST, so basically what that means, we're standing on regular floor. If you have access to an unstable surface, then you would go on and do it on an unstable surface, but it's just a simple balance testing, hands on your hip, eyes closed if you can hold it. Now, what exactly is SCAT-5? SCAT-5 is a paper pencil test that is used almost by anybody when it comes to concussion diagnosis or testing in the field. It has a symptom evaluation, a cognitive screening, which includes an orientation test and a number backward test, and of course the proprioception function of a BEST test. So an orientation test would be simple questions like, where are you? What's today's date? What's the score? What inning are we in? And a number backwards test would be 99. Start counting backwards from 99. Just simple as that. Now, SWAY is more of an app that uses digital tools for reaction time and for memory and processing speed. So in the cognitive portion of the sway, there's memory test and reaction test. Memory test, I'll give you a pattern that you got to follow with your finger and repeat it back. The reaction test is going to show you 2 T-bars, and whichever T-bar shows you at the beginning, you got to click again. When it comes to the neurological part of the testing, you'll have, again, symptom evaluation, which will be found on both, and then proprioception, which will be the best test. But instead of doing it on the ground and the person manually testing, you'll put the phone on your chest for sway, and they'll balance, and the phone will read the balance. So my focus clinical question is, in athletes with suspected concussion, does sway provide more reliable cognitive and proprioception function assessments compared to the GAP-5 for accurate and efficient concussion diagnosis and management? So my search strategy included peer-reviewed articles from PubMed and Google Scholar. I used words like sway, GAP-5, concussion assessment. Inclusion studies, it had to be talking about cognitive and proprioception. Exclusion studies that were not on sidelines, studies that focused on impact, which is another version of sway, but they're not the same thing. So I used 5 articles, 2 of them being systematic reviews, 2 of them being conceptual articles, and 1 of them being a review article. As you see, I used the Pedro and Strobe scale to grade them. And then my results. So specificity and sensitivity for SCAP-5 were 89 for sensitivity and 80 for specificity. Some strengths that it had, it was a comprehensive concussion assessment, and it's already known everywhere. You can go up to any athletic trainer or medical professional and ask them about the SCAP-5. Weaknesses that it had, it was manual scoring, and it relied on the athlete's honesty. So if an athlete had already had a concussion or they're going to be retested again, using SCAP-5, they might know already what's coming. And then it was also had some limited sensitivity in some of the neurological testing. Now with sway, it has a specificity and a sensitivity of 52%. Some strength is that it automatically scores with your phone. So there's no, oh, this person needs to get back out there. They need to be concussion cleared. And then it's portable, easy access. Only the athletic trainer can have their phone on the sideline if needed, hand it to the player, do the quick assessment. Its weaknesses, of course, we can never rely on technology to be 100%. So Wi-Fi, cell service, any of that can go out, it's always important to remember. And then, of course, there's only limited research on this, and for sway, you have to have a subscription for it. So results, sway has a more advantage for its sideline due to it being portable and it's fast. SCAP-5 is better suited for clinical evaluations, which in the office you'll sit down and do one real quick. But both tools demonstrated utility but require further head-to-head comparative research to see which one would be better on the sideline when you're trying to get a player either back into the game or know if you need to take them out. My clinical bottom line is there's not enough research on sway to make a diagnosis. Concussions require a multifaceted approach, so it's just not going to be one thing when it comes to diagnosing. And of course, the final diagnosis has to be from a doctor. No, oh, you have a concussion, you have to sit out for the rest of the week. Oh, you have a concussion, we need to go ahead and send you to the team doctor. And both are great on the sidelines. Sway is just better because it's portable and faster. Like for us coming in new athletic trainers, we might not know the SCAP-5 by hand, but by quick, but sway will already have the tests that need to be done. So implications for practice, athletic training integrates sway for immediate evaluations. We need to keep the SCAP-5 for follow-up and detail assessments. As I said before, sway is a new thing, and there just needs to be more research on it. And for research, there needs to be more studies that compare both SCAP-5 and sway, and there needs to be like a hybrid approach when it comes to using one or the other or both. So in conclusion, both tools are valuable but serve different purposes, and it should be required. It should be selected on what you have access to. So if your school can afford Sway could be something that you use. If not, SCAP 5 is always going to be available. And here are my references. I'd like to thank the JSU Student Symposium for allowing me to speak, my peers, my professors, and everyone who has supported me on this journey. Any questions?
So what's the difference in affordability for those?
When it comes to Sway, there is a subscription that the school buys, and I believe it's like $2,000 a year. And for each student after that, I think they limited you to like 300, and then it was like a subcharge for each other student. And every person would create their own account, but it would be under like, okay, let's say we're doing Jack State, it would all be under the Jack State profile. It's only a cost to the school, and each student would have to take the test.
So I guess I'm just thinking about those small rural areas and don't really have big budgets, and they still need access to quality health care.
That's why there's the SCAP 5, and I come to find out as I'm working with another clinical rotation that there is a free version of, it's not Sway, but it's something similar, that uses a computerized test to check for concussions. So they start off with a baseline, and then later on, if they have a concussion and they fail that test, then they can go back and redo it.
Okay, so even poor schools can still have access to some degree.
Yes.
Okay, good.
You had a question?
So, assuming that you have the resources to utilize both, which one would you choose?
Well, because there isn't enough research on Sway, even though it's quick, it's great, I would probably use a multifaceted approach. So coming in with SCAP 5, people reaction test, a quick orientation test, and then Sway, because it always comes back to the practice effect. If the athlete has known and done it enough, I'll probably just sit there and treat it like a video game and just keep going on and on and on. So it's always to think what's going to be better for your athlete. Any other questions?
If not, another round of applause for our speaker.